At some point, almost everyone trying to improve their lives hits an invisible wall. Despite our best efforts, a part of our own mind actively steps in to sabotage our happiness, fulfillment, and wholeness. Our default reaction to this destructive side is avoidance. We try to ignore it, bypass it entirely, or bury it under a flawless facade, mostly because exposing our darker impulses leaves us with a secret, nagging feeling that we are frauds. But this avoidance strategy carries a severe psychological cost. Pushing the negativity down doesn't eliminate it. It creates a blockage. Our conscious awareness dims, and the energy within our soul becomes completely frozen. To achieve genuine inner peace, we have to do the exact opposite of what feels safe. We must actively invite this dark negativity to surface, and we have to let it speak. You cannot simply stare into that darkness unprotected. Confronting that level of hostility alone is highly dangerous. To safely unearth this negativity without being consumed by it, you need a highly specific, multi-part framework. True wholeness arrives by orchestrating a structured internal system that safely confronts the very parts of us that destroy our joy. The first voice in this internal system is the lower self. Think of it as an unconscious, destructive inner infant. It operates entirely on ignorance, and it makes impossible, stubborn claims to omnipotence, expecting total control over everything. Far above that is the higher self. This is your superconscious mind. It holds universal wisdom, superior love, power, and a comprehensive, broad understanding of the events happening in your life. Wedged directly between these two extremes is the conscious ego. This is your everyday waking awareness, the active space containing all of your conscious knowing and willing. In this framework, the conscious ego has a critical active job. It must act as a relentless mediator, constantly facilitating the interaction and managing the flow between the supreme wisdom above and the chaotic infant below. The ego's first diplomatic action is brutally difficult. It has to entirely drop its vanity and commit to observing the destructive infant unfold and manifest without flinching or looking away. A healthy mind is not a single unified entity by default. It is a fractured council. To prevent total psychological gridlock, the ego has to forcibly establish diplomatic relations across the table. If the ego tries to handle the stubborn resistance of the lower self using nothing but conscious willpower, it will fail. The conscious will alone is simply insufficient. To safely expose and understand the infant's destructiveness, the ego has a vital protocol to follow. It must actively request backup and guidance from the universal higher self. Attempting this exposure without the higher self's wisdom carries a specific psychological risk. The ego will inevitably distort what it sees, falling into dramatic exaggeration or collapsing into paralyzing self-deprecation. Guided safely, there comes a critical, difficult moment when the destructive infant finally reveals its true spite, malice, or hate directly to the conscious mind. The ego's required response to this hostility is unjudging, detached observation. It has to look clearly at the hate and remind itself that these destructive attitudes are neither absolute nor final. Then the interrogation begins. The ego must rigorously question the underlying misconceptions and the exact origins that are responsible for generating these negative feelings in the first place. When the ego exposes the specific misconceptions behind a negative feeling, the logic of that malice begins to crumble. Seeing the origins of the hate removes its power, causing the weight of guilt and self-hate to diminish naturally. The destructive internal infant is never meant to be annihilated or destroyed. You cannot destroy it. Instead, through the continuous light of conscious awareness and universal wisdom, the infant must be reoriented, instructed, and liberated. Through this re-education, the emotional energy once locked in rigid, frozen blocks begins to thaw, resolving back into living power. The exhausting demands for absolute perfection, the claims for specialness, and the weight of unreal self-disgust simply melt away alongside those blockages. The entire self becomes stronger and more stable. Anchored in reality, the mind enters a state of deep peace and genuine self-respect. Internally, the system perfectly aligns. Action and detachment seamlessly blend together, allowing the individual to experience the universe's possibilities from within. True, lasting self-transformation is an act of patient instruction. It proves that wholeness comes from turning our darkest inner rebels into our most powerful source of living energy.